Michael Verney, we're going back training tomorrow. It's Tuesday as we speak. Tomorrow is the 24th of June. We're going back training. How do you feel about it?
I'm looking forward to it, but probably there's probably a bit of trepidation as well, just because you're not really sure. You're going back training. It's not training as you know it. It's non-contact training, obviously, and maximum of 15 players. So you're only going to be in a group of 15. You're not going to be in on top of lads, trying to win balls off lads or competing in the air or anything like that. Probably just going to be a good bit of ball work with loads of running mixed in. But it is quite strange. I could understand how someone might not want to do it, or might have some sort of underlying condition, or someone close to them might have some sort of underlying condition and might not want to do it. Now we haven't, to the best of my knowledge, encountered that in our club. I think everybody who was training or had the intention of training or intention of playing games this year is coming back to play games. But I could understand how some people might be a bit nervous, and nervous as well from the aspect of there's a lot that you have to do before you can go training. You have to do you have to go through the e-learning portal for about 20 or 25 minutes, make sure you know everything you should. You have to fill out the questionnaire, make sure you've passed, you're basically safe to go back training. There's all the signs that need to be up in St. Brennan's Park and Burr. There's the COVID officer that you need to have. There's the COVID officer within your team that you need to have. And it's just going to be different going back in. You're not going back into the dressing room. There's not going to be that bit of sneer and that bit of crack in the dressing room that you would usually have. So it is different. Like the pitches are open, but it's just the pitches really. There's no club offices or anything like that open. You're just into the pitch through a side gate. We're coming in through a side gate and we're exiting through another side gate, not coming in contact with anyone else. It's going to be weird. What do you think yourself?
Well, I think first of all, the pitches should have been opened an awful lot sooner. As I've done a piece about before, you're 19 times less likely to transmit in an open air setting, and there's people in parks up and down the country, that are poking around balls, that are kicking soccer balls, that are doing fitness classes in the corner. So I think it's fairly ridiculous that it's taken this long, and the idea that you need volunteers at every field. I mean, we're all adults. If people can go into public parks, why can't you go into a GAA field? And the GAA had said it wasn't an insurance issue. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's okay for me. I don't living up here in Dublin, I don't live with anyone who's vulnerable. I mean, there are cases, and definitely this is something that has come out from the Irish government and Tony Holohan and co, that there are some people under the ages of 35 that have contracted it recently and are ill with it. So obviously the risks are there, and chances are there will be a few players who get something. I mean, you see, the more countries open up, the more that the cases do grow. But of course, it's very much a suck it and see approach, and we'll see how things go. But I did throw it up on my Twitter when things changed the other day. I mean, like, part of it is training back tomorrow, and then on the 29th you can do full contact training and full challenge matches. So I put it up now. I put it up July 29th by mistake. I meant June 29th. But are you happy, and do you feel safe to return to the training on what should have been June 29th? And it's 79% saying that they are happy to do so. But of course, that does mean that there's 1 in 5 who are not happy to do so. And I think this is something that was reflected in the GPA survey. Also, it came back that that was 75. Well, basically, I think was it something like 17% of players are unhappy to go back, and the intercounty season isn't going to begin until the middle of October, which is a long way away yet. But people's minds probably change. You had people insanely saying a couple of months ago, just give players certainty and call the season off. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things we've seen throughout this. Let's not be hasty. Let's wait and see, and not just make these grand-standing sort of proclamations. We just have to see how it goes. But me myself, I'm happy to go back.
Well, there was a lot of people kind of making statements that, call off the GA season or whatever. Like, and I kind of thought about it at the time. It's just like, who am I to say call off the GA season, or who are you to say that, or who is a former Tipperary player, or a former Kilkenny player, or a former GA president? Really, like, who are they? They don't have the expertise to make that sort of a judgment. And look how quickly things are after changing now. From maybe 2 months ago when it looked like we're never going to get on the field again. We weren't going to be playing until 2021, and now we're going to be playing championship from July 17th onwards. Like, that's just like, you let the experts do their jobs. In fairness, Ireland took a fairly hard stance and we kind of were able to neutralize things. And now things are opening up pretty quickly again, way quicker than anybody thought. So like I just think people are probably foolish to do that. Just on the sorry now on your Twitter thing as well. When are Twitter going to bring in a thing where you can edit a post you make? Like
Well,
seriously, it's gone ridiculous now. Just make a small little edit, like something like that. I know that they don't want people editing messages to be different, and people like and retweet then something that's incorrect. But that drives me insane now.
well, maybe it could be one of these things where Twitter kind of it makes it obvious this is an edited post and it shows you what the original was, and
Yeah.
then maybe you can put something in there. But I think we'll fight that battle another day. Very interesting tweet from Conor McGrainer, the Wicklow footballer. So he put up, find it hard to understand why Premier League and AFL players who are professionals are getting rigorously tested, yet from this day next week our club can have a practice match and some guy can hang out with me for an hour who could be working in a hospital, no bothers. Now, he got a huge amount of responses to that, and people saying to him, for example, don't play if you don't want to, simples. But he also added, for the record, I'm absolutely buzzing to get back on the field. I have assessed the risks and I'm comfortable in doing so. My tweet was just opening up the question of why there is such a stark contrast in health and safety measures. What did you think when you saw that?
No, I think he makes a lot of very, very valid points. I think there's a couple of there's going to be some dilemmas coming up for people over the next while, and there's going to be some dilemmas coming up for managers, right? So a manager's job. So just say you're manager of Kula for 2020. You don't know whether you're manager for Kula in 2021. So this is your year. You're dealing with this squad. You're trying to maximize what they can do, and at the end of the day, you're going to be judged on your results. Say a fella comes with a sniffle or a cold or brings something to training, and you're aware of it. Are you going to make everybody else aware of it? Are you going to tell him that he can't come into the pitch? I'm not saying he might have any sort of virus or anything like that, but there's a possibility that it could be something very small, it could be a sniffle, it could be anything. Like, are you gonna take the chance? Are you gonna let him into the pitch and possibly infect other people, maybe with a virus? There's going to be some stuff coming up. Players are going to have to be unbelievably honest as well. Like, how many games have you played sick? I'm sure you've played a fair few. How many games have I played sick, or where I was with the doctor a couple of days beforehand? A good few. That sort of stuff isn't really a runner now. It's not a runner at all. You cannot risk like giving any. Number one, you can't risk yourself, and you can't risk passing anything on to anyone else. So there's going to have to be an unbelievable level of honesty here and an awful lot of integrity as well. Like, okay, I had some sort of a sniffle, or I went somewhere here and I went training and I didn't really say it to anybody. I lied in my questionnaire, and three of my teammates will just say, I'm after getting corona, and three of my teammates have it now as well. And we played a practice match against Team X from Galway, and five of the lads from Team X have it now as well, and they're bringing it home. Do you know what I mean? So, like, there's an awful lot of other implications to this. I think this is a time when people need to get out of that tunnel now and see that there's a much bigger picture at play here. If I lie, or if I do something maybe that's not that honest, I could be affecting an awful lot of people here outside of myself and my family, my teammates, their families, my opposition, their families. So I think there's an ethical question that's going to have to be met, and it's going to have to be met with a fairly resounding kind of, I'm doing things the greater good. I'm seeing the bigger picture here. We're being honest, we're being open, and we're being transparent. We're not hiding anything.
Probably that would require a huge level of naivety to think that that's going to happen. Players play with cruciates done. Players play with broken hands. I remember back in 2014, I had shingles and I played. And I know an inter-county player, because we actually kind of shared that story with each other. It just so happened that we had both had it different years now, but it just so happened, and nothing happened on the back of that. Players are going to play, like they will play, because there are going to be asymptomatic cases whereby you don't have the sniffles but you have coronavirus, or you do have it and yet you don't have coronavirus. And we saw the fallout with Conor McKenna down in the AFL. And then what happens in a situation whereby Burr are going into a county final, and the weekend coming up, all of a sudden Michael Verney possibly has either coronavirus suspected, a false negative case, and a negative false, you just don't know
what happens. They'd only be delighted to get rid of me, I'd say.
Yeah, but like that aside though, let's say it's coming up to, I'm not sure when your county final is due to be played, but let's say you're in it. and there's a coronavirus case, and it's it takes 3 weeks maybe on average for someone to recover. Do they decide, okay, they ask, let's say, Cool Derry are in the final against you, lads, can we all cool the jets for 3 weeks and then play the county final? And then Michael Fennelly is told, by the way, you won't be getting your players now until right before the championship starts because we've had to delay the county final. I mean, you really don't know what's going to happen. We are going to have interest in case, like, obviously the community transmission is unbelievably low, and maybe it'll stay very low, and we all hope it does. But you could end up with all sorts of situations whereby a county final is delayed by 3 weeks in one county, and at that stage a county championship is totally finished in a rival county. Let's say Offaly are up against whoever, and everything could end up being completely thrown out of whack.
100%. It was like this. How many inter-county players, even high profile, would have said maybe before kind of the last couple of years when it got really serious? How many of them would have said, "I'd play with a concussion, or I'd play on, I do it. Whatever happens. I couldn't be sitting on the line, or I couldn't be whatever." So like, if they're going to take that risk, people are going to have to make. There's going to have to be an awful lot of serious calls here made, probably by committees and county boards. They're going to have to take a hard stance on this. But then, is the player going to be secretive about something? Are you not going to hear from them for a couple of days? Are they going to go at the ground and then just arrive kind of the day of the match? Do you know what I mean? So there's an awful lot of these things are going to be up in the air, and they are going to happen. They are going to happen. We mightn't hear about them, but they are going to happen.
Like just to go back to that situation of a county final being called off, it could be the night before a game and a player suspects that he may have it. Because you hear of some of these symptoms such as a loss of taste and smell, and I would have had a friend who lost his sense of taste and smell, was felt very sick for a couple of weeks, and yet the test came back negative, and he's convinced he was positive. It sounds like a positive test, but you might have a player the night before a county final not feeling great. Maybe he lives with his brothers as well. Maybe they've kind of met up with their teammates in the previous couple of days before he felt bad. I mean, and a county final could be called off the day before because of something like this.
No, that could easily happen. Yeah.
And inter-county too. It could happen in the inter-county season.
Yeah, well, yeah, it could easily. There's so many kind of. There's a lot of. They've crossed a lot of bridges already, but there's going to be a lot more that the GAA clubs, counties, and nationally are going to have to cross. Between now and Christmas, without a doubt, we're all kind of feeling it out. Like, we're all kind of trying to exactly assess what the sort of situation is. I'm not going to lie, it is great to have it back, though. It's great. It's great to have it back. It's great to have that anticipation, and I think in training and matches where possible, everyone bringing their own hand sanitizer, bringing their own 2-litre bottle, taking all those precautions, not being in the dressing room. It will definitely, if everybody does what they're supposed to do, it will definitely drastically reduce the chances of anything happen. But there are going to be some peculiar or special cases, I'd say, over the next while.
Michael Dignan was looking for leadership when he was on the Sunday game the other day. He definitely called out the GPA, and they've released their survey. I mean, I would have definitely looked for an awful lot more leadership from a group that has such sway and influence. I think there should have been a lot more leadership at this stage, and the fact that I suppose the leader, Paul Flynn, was part of the COVID advisory group, that probably meant he was going to go to ground somewhat. But still in all, I think you need to see an awful lot more from the most high profile player group that there is. The CPA have obviously tried to lead from the front, probably deserve to be listened to an awful lot more. But just just in terms of that survey that came out from the GPA, so number one point was that the players filled out a survey on was competitions must be completed within the calendar year. So 76% of players backed that. Number two, a defined off-season must be set out before the 2021 season begins. 72% of players view this as being very important. 75% of players believe that the start of the 2021 season should be delayed to ensure this is accommodated. And then any inter-county session organised before the September 14th must be covered by the GAA injury benefit scheme. And then the fourth point was a minimum 4-week window between club championship completion and the first inter-county game. And I mean, this is where I struggle, because Paul Flynn is part of that group that came up with that the inter-county season wouldn't begin till October the 14th. So potentially I could play a club game on September the 13th. That could be my county final, and then the inter-county season is supposed to start the next day. and yet this survey is coming out with a month later. So, I mean, I find it that there is a bit of a disconnect between what's happening at different levels of the GAA when it comes to this. You're going to have counties like Laois going into September for their county finals, and then other counties rumoured to be finished before the end of August. So this is where the lack of leadership, where the GAA isn't coming down to counties and saying, this is the window. County managers are not getting that manager or any of those players at all until after the county championship is done, or at least until club teams, any player who's still active in a club championship, they can't go back. Here is the start point. This is when we want county finals to be played, and say September the 14th, that is the county final for every team across the country, and if you're a dual code, September 21st for the other. Something like that. Lay it down from the top. Here's how we'd like you to play. If you're a dual county, here's how we'd like your structure. Here's for a single code. But because you've just kind of picked a couple of arbitrary dates and allowed the club and county to intersect, this has just created the club versus county issue again. And I'd love to see a few inter-county players actually come out and say this is wrong. I mean, inter-county players are well able to band together to oust the manager if they want. Like, we've seen that. We've seen Galway get rid of their manager. We've seen Clare players last year, when there was an issue over how Donald Maloney had been treated, they came out with a statement against their own county board. County players have all played with each other at college level. Why don't you organise between yourselves that you'll come out collectively from a group of a lot of different counties and say, we don't think this is right? Because it's a bit like, I think in a way, it's a bit like how any team that signs Colin Kaepernick now in the NFL will be the most popular team in the country. Their jersey sale of Colin Kaepernick number 7 will be the biggest jersey in the country. This is a popular movement. This will get everyone on the country on side. You don't have to be afraid to stick your head above the parapet here. If you can just organise other players to row in behind you, you will be the most popular player in possibly GAA history for fixing this issue or helping fix this issue. Because the GAA can't ignore it then. The GPA can't ignore it then. I just think it'd be huge. A bit like Raheem Sterling coming out saying things with Black Lives Matter. This is a very popular idea, and if someone stuck their head above the parapet, you could change the history, because things are getting worse and worse for club players, and if club dies in the same way that it has done in rugby, it's definitely going to affect the fabric of the game.
100%. And I think, like, there are some county players that are already been caught in the crosshairs. I know for a fact that there are some county players that have been caught in the crosshairs that, we need you here, we need you there, you're not allowed to go to your club till then or whatever. I'd hope that bravery would overcome the fear of maybe upsetting your county manager. At the end of the day, right? This is the way I'd always say it, right? Your county manager is your county manager. He or she is not always going to be there, but your county's always going to be there, and your club is going to be there. What you have the potential to do at the moment goes way beyond manager X over here and what he thinks and his possible dictatorship. Okay, but I do agree with you as well. The GA needs to toe a hard line on this and leave no ambiguity in there for managers, for county boards. Okay, you're not allowed to go back training till here. That's that. Not allowed to go back training. Basically, it's like the winter training ban, except you enforce it and you make sure that it is enforced and that nobody is flouting it.
But we know teams are training right now. We know inter-county teams. Anecdotally, we both know of teams training 2, 3, 4 times a week as things stand.
Yeah, 100% already. So, and the big issue I have with, well, there's several issues I have with that. One of the main issues is that when club goes back, those guys are not, their sole attention is not going to be on the club, which it should be allowed to be. You have managers saying one thing and then maybe doing another thing. Yeah, do you know what I mean? They're saying, oh yeah, it's maybe it's not that important this year or whatever, and then they should be going back to their club and whatever, and then they're training with their county now when they should be, they're training with their county now when they're not insured to train with their county, number one, or they're training in a golf course or training in a bog or something like that because they can't get a GA pitch or can't get a grounds, or they're training in a park or whatever. I think the GA needs to toe a very, very hard line, because otherwise there's several things are going to happen. Clubs are going to be unfairly treated. The clubs who put all the hours and all the time into making these players county are not going to have full access to them. And then when the county goes back, there's already counties at an on-level playing field, and there's counties here and there's counties here financially before we even start, numerically before we start, population-wise before we start, and it could go from here to here based on, we've been able to get back. We got our championship. We ran it off there as a blitz, basically. Johnny played 2 games in 4 days, and then his club championship season was over. I've had him for the past 2 months. And then in another county, maybe there's 2 weeks between the county final and him getting back playing county. Do you know what I mean? So if the GAA toes a hard line on it, I just think you remove any grey areas, and this is what we're doing. You're not allowed to do this. If anyone is caught basically intervening in this, why don't you say we'll whack a fine of all fines down on top of you, or we'll ban you from the championship,
or we won't give you funding for the following year. That this, like in future, like counties that are getting funding, it should be this is part of the deal that clubs exclusively get players for a certain amount of time. But again, just to come back to players, I think I'm not asking or thinking any one player should step up above the parapet. Now, if an unbelievably high-profile guy did it, who is always guaranteed to be in the team, I think that would be very powerful, even that person on their own. But all players know each other. They were all in college together. They've all met each other at, commercial launches, whatever it might be. They're all very familiar with each other. If they wanted to, they could band together, and they could make it so that no manager is there going to drop someone for this, and that the strength in numbers is there. I mean, the GPA should be looking at doing something like this. I mean, I want to see leadership from them. I think in the past, in the Super 8s, they were like, we're changing the leadership, so they sat in their hands, they did nothing. They haven't really done anything here. They throw out a survey every time. Like, let's see you show the leadership. And like, if you want me to buy into stuff like more funding for the GPA, will you do something for clubs? Because every player is a club player. And if you're just looking after players that are at the very top end of the game, I'm not going to buy into you, because you're basically pitting club against county, and you're every cent that goes to the top level of the game is a cent that could be going to the bottom level of the game. So come in here, show leadership, show that you care about all levels of the game, and I'll buy in with you. This is a perfect opportunity.
As well as that, we already know that the club is the poor relation in the GAA already. The county game is basically standing strong, overlooking everything else. This is a chance to redress that balance and get some things in place to make sure that the county, runaway train doesn't continue to run away down the tracks, that we get back on an even keel a bit more. This is, without being smart, this is probably the one chance we're going to have to make something like that happen. And now, before you even hear when clubs are actually allowed to go back do things, you hear that some counties are training, that some managers are even trying to withdraw players from going back to their club within a certain time frame before matches. I would, from the GPA's point of view, I'd be trying to get, if I was them, I would be trying to get some sort of hard line, or saying that we don't endorse any counties back training until this. We will remove the player grants away from counties that are basically not abiding by whatever rules are in place. I'm not saying there actually is any proper rules in place at the moment. There's probably not. But that's one way of doing it. Hit people either in their pocket if they think they can just go off on a tangent to do what they want. That's GPA wise. That's GAA wise. Just say a really strong hurling county is back training. They're back training now. They're doing training. They're meeting up in groups, which they're not supposed to be really, and they should be all with their club fairly soon. I'm telling you, throw them out of the championship. Leave the threat that you're training for something that if it's found out that we're training and we're flouting these rules, we won't be in the championship at all.
Put it to you this way, right? We know that no team is supposed to change or train until September 14th. And a member of the GAA is part of that COVID advisory group that ensured that was the way it was going to be. The GPA survey says any inter-county training session organised before September 14th must be covered by the GAA injury benefit scheme. So you've been part of the process that says no one should train before then, and yet out of the other side of your mouth you're saying any training session that does happen before then should be covered. So which is it? And this is where I have an issue with, it feels like talking out both sides of your mouth. Any training session before then, like you're saying, your team is out of the championship. We will be actively looking to report teams because club has to come first, and players, crucially, county players as well as club, have to come first. So I just think there's a real issue, and it's very glaring in that particular instance there.
I would just say on what you said there as well, Shane, there's probably needs to be a caveat. The only way that you can train county before then, or it ensures, if your club is out of every championship that you're supposed to be taking part in. If you're playing hurling and football and they're out of both the last week in August, well then, like I think it's if there's 15 members of a county panel that are all out, we'll say by the mid to late August, they're all out of championships. That's probably a different scenario. But if your championships are going on, your club championships, that is your sole focus. You are not worried about county. There's nothing else going on in your GA world. Only your club. That's it. Nothing else.
Final question: what way would you like the championship structures to be for inter-county? Do you subscribe to this straight knockout thing?
Well, like if they want to get championships played this year, which it seems like there's a great appetite that they do. Listen, this year is totally different. It's an absolute it's going to be an anomaly in the GAA's history. It's going to be totally different. I was chatting to Sean Boylan recently, and he talked about the Centenary Cup in 1984, and he said, "Who would have ever thought that Meath would play Monaghan in the 1984 Centenary Cup after there was an open draw?" And he was basically saying, "Look at what that did for Meath. Look at what that did for Monaghan." He was kind of just saying, "This is a different year." And the only thing I will say is, right, if counties are back, they're not going to be back training for that long. So you can't have this argument of, "We've been training for 6 months. One match, you're out." Do you know what I mean? They're not training for that. It's different. It's different this year. Everything is basically off the table here. I would see no issue with a straight knockout, an open draws and a straight knockout. I would see no issue with that whatsoever if they want to get played within the calendar year. Everything is totally different this year. So I don't have an issue with that.
The one thing is, if they did do groups phases in any way, shape or form, or didn't go for straight knockout, if players are going to be playing week upon week upon week, and on the back of doing that with club as well, you're almost certainly going to get injuries, especially when the weather turns and the sod gets a bit heavier as the winter comes in. One thing I would like to see is that the club, provincial and All Ireland series, that they are played as soon as the inter-county is over. I think that that's important. If they are binned for a year, that's like another death knell to the club level. I mean, the club championship is so important, takes teams on such journeys, whether it's at senior, intermediate, junior level, it doesn't matter. I would like to see, you can play them off in, let's say, 5 weeks. I think the most that any provincial championship would have is 3 rounds, maybe 4 in the odd situation, but you could play the whole thing off in 5-6 weeks tops. And I think teams would accept that for the sake of 1 year only. But it's important to not just sweep it under the carpet and pretend it doesn't matter, because it really does.
Just on that as well, it's not going to be any different to any other year. The provincials are played late in the year. If we have to, if they're not played in 2020, play them in early January, early February, have it all played off. It's not the way we'd like it in a normal year, but this is anything but normal, and it will just basically resemble all the years that have passed before. So I would definitely be trying to get those played. They mean too much for them not to be played.
Great stuff. Okay, we'll chat again.